put this on Season 2, Episode 34, where we watch Mythbusters, Season 15, Episode 1. I'm Chris Lorenz and
Robert Kitts.
Harrison Hoffman.
And we have a special guest,
Brian Houston.
All right, guys. I'm assuming a lot of us have seen Mythbusters in the past.
Yes.
I actually watched maybe one or two episodes. I did not regularly watch
So you do not have a lot of Mythbusters experience.
I do not. I'm coming in pretty cold to the Mythbusters world.
So, as probably many of our Brian, you want to go?
Yeah, and Rob, you picked the right episode.
Did he?
See about that.
Did he?
No.
I mean, I've been off and on Mythbusters. I've seen most of, actually. It was on, certain episodes were on Hulu for a long time, and I watched most of those until they disappeared. But as most of our listeners probably aren't aware, is that they've rebooted Mythbusters
On the Science Channel.
on the Science Channel, and this was episode 1 of their new series. I don't really know what to call it.
New generation.
I wish they would have just called it Mythbusters 2 or Mythbusters New.
It should have been.
Mythbusters
Myth-
TNG.
like a new show instead of still using the same kind of name.
And season 15 on IMDb and Wikipedia.
Yeah.
They still use the same announcer though. The announcer for the show is still the same.
That's the continuity.
It's either
right
the
there.
same or at least sounds very similar.
It's definitely the same.
It sounds.
It's the
I'll
same.
look it up.
Okay, do you want me to read the description here?
Sure.
Okay. Mythbusters will explode back onto Science Channel this fall with all new episodes and an all new team. Brian Loudon and John Lung, who earned the right to be called Mythbusters by displaying killer build skills and science smarts during Mythbusters The Search, will showcase their awesome talents by building and executing new experiments involving rocket-powered swords, exploding gas tanks, airbag disasters, and more. That was a very long sentence. The new 14-episode season of Mythbusters will debut Wednesday, November 15th. Okay.
So is the very long sentence in the description, or are you ad-libbing that? into the
I
description?
added that because they need an editor.
Okay. So I feel like this spoiled that other reality show. We know who won.
Well, explain the other reality show.
So, all right. Most people know, but Mythbusters, they had 2 hosts, Jamie Heineman and Adam Savage.
Yep.
And they were the hosts for 14 seasons. In there, they added 3 other people to for half. I don't know for how many seasons they were on.
May they all rest in peace.
I don't know.
They all have a show on Netflix now. They, the 3 sidekick people have a show on Netflix called White Rabbit Project.
I don't think that got picked up for season 2.
Not very good.
I don't think that got picked up for season 2. We can talk about that.
Are you saying we should add to the queue, Harrison?
No.
It was kind of just boring.
No. Let's not add it to the queue. Unless some people out there really want us to talk about it, but we don't need to. So, essentially, they were on the show too much, their contracts expired, and they were probably going to take too much money to keep the show going. So, Mythbusters Discovery Channel or Science Channel decided they were going to have a reality show to pick new hosts for Mythbusters. I was just assuming they were just going to keep doing that instead of having an actual new Mythbusters. But I guess they decided to actually go
Hold
through
on.
with it.
What?
So you thought that at the end of the season of the show that was meant to pick the host for the new
Well,
Mythbusters,
I just
you're
thought
just going to keep on
I never saw the
searching for
show,
hosts?
so I just assumed at the end of it you're like a normal reality show where you're you win, and then the next season's just they're picking out of all new people to see who would win. I didn't realize it was for the new hosts of the show.
Gotcha.
Well, to be fair, we don't know if they're going to do a second season with these 2 hosts, or if they'll just go back and do another thing and have your prize is you get to do 1 season and then you're done.
It feels like it's in the vein of that the Food Network star show where if you win the where the place where I think Guy Fieri came from.
Oh yes.
Is where if you win the season you get your own Food Network show, but this is not you just get your own science show. It's you get Mythbusters. So you can't just make a new show every season.
Huge brand,
right,
and huge recognition. And if you're not very good, I don't know if your opinions are, but you get to drag the whole brand down.
I think that was a little spoiler alert for how Chris thinks of the new hosts.
I mean, they're okay. They're not. the other hosts. I don't know.
It's tough. It's a tough act to follow when you're literally doing the same show with the same name. Like you're going to be
same
compared.
format. There's nothing changed.
Right, for sure.
Like
It's
they
like-
don't even go into like anything about what these like myths are. Like they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna see if this is a thing or not.
Yeah.
There's no like made up bullshit about like why or who or what. Like they didn't give any examples of. So if you examples of what. So the one myth that they're testing to see is if somebody could cut off a head and there would be a delayed reaction for that head to fall off.
Right.
They didn't give any examples of what they were testing. Like they were just like, yeah, in some movies.
Because they didn't
Like,
want to pay for the rights to show those movie clips in the show.
Right.
Yeah, but this gives me some
Oh, yeah.
like
No, for sure.
They should have just put up the TV tropes article for it.
some whatever. Like you can mention a TV like a movie without
it's like it's a
having to pay.
it's a common enough thing though that like you can accept that that's a thing you've seen in a movie before, right? Like
I mean, like Kill Bill, like it just doesn't happen that often.
definitely happened in Kill Bill.
It does happen often enough that, as they said, it has a name that it's like a known thing. Like
Yeah, but
oh,
it's not just about like heads chopped off for that name. It's like the Gus Fring thing,
Hmm.
but it has nothing to do. Like what was it? Delayed causality or something?
Delayed causality.
Yeah, like Gus Fring falling after the bomb explosion was like that's delayed causality, but that's not what they were testing.
Hmm.
Like I feel like that's just a name for when Bugs Bunny like realizes he's not actually on the cliff, and like then he looks down and then he falls.
I think you're
like,
thinking about Wile E. Coyote.
whatever. I'm sure it's happened in a Bugs Bunny cartoon.
Probably.
And then the other myth that they did on this episode was if you have your knees up or your legs
Feet up
as a passenger on the passenger side of the car
On the dashboard.
and you get in an accident, will you die from that? That was the myth.
The myth is you will die, and so they were testing that myth.
Which
So like I've never heard the myth that you would die from that, but like I've always thought that like man, your legs would probably get messed up if your feet were on here when the airbag goes off.
I've never thought about it.
I've thought about it.
I've never thought about it. Never heard anyone talk about it. Never heard anything about it ever.
I don't know. Like I'm sure as a kid, like I put my feet on the dash. Someone and like my parents were like, no, like take your feet down. It's dangerous. I think I've heard that kind of.
Well, now it's even bad. They don't even want you to put kids in the front seat at all.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I mean, even when I was growing up, you had to be like 10 or so to be in the front seat. Now you have to be like 18. I don't know
Yeah,
what it
no,
is.
it's crazy.
Soon, no one will be allowed in the front seat.
Only if you're 55 or older.
You've got to be near death, and then
Like-
they'll be like, "All right, now you can go in the front seat. Enjoy it."
It's not that crazy to think that like when we have driverless cars that there is no front seat, that like you're in some kind of super safe compartment of the car, something like that.
Is that the trunk?
Yeah, it's just you just get in the trunk.
No, the seats
And,
start facing backwards.
Yeah.
so you're just like you're all facing each other. And
Yeah.
No one, and so you can't face the front.
Yeah.
I can't. I get too much motion sickness from that. I can't go backwards.
Well, then you can sit in the
Yeah.
back seat.
I'll sit in the back seat. That's fine. So I don't know. We should go back to the show, maybe.
We could do that. Is that what we talk about?
I don't really know what to talk about. Like they try. So you went over this. Brian, you went over the sword myth just quickly.
Okay. Well, wait. So they first started by bringing on this guy, like master swordsman, to teach them how to swing a sword, and that's the last time you'll ever see him. Which, to me, was one of the most disappointing things.
That
Yes.
happens a lot in Mythbusters. They don't actually use the experts to do anything. They use the experts to teach the hosts.
It's
and the
like-
hosts go do things.
It's like here's the thing. The myth is that you can swing a sword so hard you chop someone's head off so that it stays in place for a second and then falls off. They got a guy who knows how to swing that sword real hard. They could bust that myth immediately. You just stand up one of those cadaver things and you take a whack at it.
But what if it's a movie where it's like Superman?
Yeah, I mean,
Well, if they brought up an example, maybe we would like have a better understanding of what myth they're trying to bust. But
You're
now
really-
this is generic.
You're
like,
really upset about.
is it human?
To be fair, like they mentioned that myth, and I could not think of a single example. But I'm like, I've definitely seen this like 100 times.
Yeah.
I don't think you've seen it 100 times.
I
You've
think I
maybe
have.
seen it like twice.
It's
definitely
more than
not-
twice.
There's definitely not that many listings on the TV Tropes article. I mean, the most common one, or that I forgot about, was on Phantom Menace when Darth Maul dies.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that's a
yeah.
pretty good one.
This is a common thing to happen with
That's a lightsaber, though,
with
isn't
like
it?
laser
Yeah, but
beams.
still, it's a sword.
Why didn't they test it with a lightsaber?
Gotta test it with the lightsaber.
Ah.
Now, if they built a lightsaber in episode 1, yeah, you sold me.
They did this in the movie Cube.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
I've seen Cube,
They had a grid of like
razor wire.
razor wire, and it just moves right through somebody, and then they just fall.
Just cuts him into a bunch of cubes.
Bunch into pieces, which is not like swinging a sword through somebody's head. Which I don't know if I've ever seen that.
I've definitely seen it, but I don't know.
Well,
where.
wait, get back to me on that.
I will.
Hey, listeners, let us know.
Okay, so after they bring this guy on and they start learning how to swing a sword, which made everybody in the room a little bit nervous based on the swings. Like the after swing was real close to some limbs.
Well, they had to eat the fruit
Oh,
after
yeah.
they played Fruit Ninja.
Can't forget eating this stupid fruit.
It's an important part of the show. They did it multiple times.
Yeah, man.
So then this progressed into like a simple rotational sword that they used to chop like watermelon, and then finally like ballistic shell with a dowel through it. So this was like step one into thinking like, oh, maybe they could happen, but the fruit ended up spoiling up what happened later because the piece that was on top started flipping over. It did like a little somersault deal.
Yeah, it kind of pushed the front edge of that top piece through a little bit, so it just kind of flipped.
Well, he
itself
made
over.
some sort of ghetto rig that like we used like air
Yeah.
power and was like really unwieldy and had like you had like a 25-degree arc to like hit something.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
just didn't give enough arc on the second piece where they had ballistics gel and like a dowel rod to simulate a neck, and it only cut halfway through because it like just ran out of momentum.
Yeah.
Well, so the other aspect of this is, and this is one reason why I hated this, is because like it didn't seem like they had the budget or like the tech skills or something. Everything was loosey goosey. Like nothing was. Everything was like
Mythbusters
falling
has
all-
always
yeah.
been loosey goosey.
No.
Yeah, it had.
If like they see like something falling over, they're like, "Well, we're gonna bolt that shit down like 200 times over."
Well, I mean, yeah. Towards the end, when they did the thing for like 15
oh my
years,
god.
No, like
Yeah. No.
it was happening like most of the time. Like Tori and like the side crew came on. Like once they came on and were like, "Oh yeah, we have like robotics guy. We have like all these other people that can make stuff at the drop of a hat." They started working on stuff.
I mean, I do think that they're a little amateurish.
It's not clear how much if it's like just these two guys doing all this stuff or how much help they have from other people. It's like not very clear to me. Like, do they have help designing? Do they have help building it, or is it really just like those two guys doing all this stuff?
They want to make it seem like it's just the two
No,
guys.
for sure.
I can tell you who wasn't helping. Bo. That fucking dog was dead weight.
No, the dog was not helping. It seemed like the dog was going to play a bigger role in the show, and then there was like one shot of the dog.
The
To-
dog's in the opening credits.
Yeah.
It could be in other episodes where he takes.
Could be.
They just put that dog in the car,
Oh.
trained to put its feet up on the dash.
It's
See what
okay.
happens.
They just
That is actually kind of realistic and be kind of scary.
the dog pulls the car.
Oh, the dog pulls the car.
Yeah.
They train the dog to swing a samurai sword.
Oh. Got to up the difficulty level as much as possible.
He's going to be the next star of Air Bud.
Oh.
Samurai Bud.
Wait, is it Samurai Bud or Air Samurai?
Ooh. I like both. Air Samurai Bud. No, it doesn't work.
No, that-
What?
It doesn't work.
Air Samurai Bud.
So then after all this, they finally figured out that like, oh, maybe they need to stabilize the end of the sword. So then they make this rocket-powered guillotine, but for the rockets they used model rocket engines. Like They had like all these hookups from like before, and they just couldn't like contact one guy to like get something better.
They had like 20 model rocket engines strapped to the back of this thing.
This thing is indoors, Brian, and like I don't know what kind of rockets you want them to do.
They rented an airstrip for like the other one.
Yeah, where you want them to like go outside and get this thing up to like 800 miles an hour, just obliterate the thing.
You gotta get those space shuttle rockets.
Like I feel like they did a fine job on that. Like they did. I feel like they didn't do more avenues other than like not a great sword to be doing this. They were just like, yeah, the sword, it didn't really work. And they're like, okay, well, we moved on.
I think they blew all their budget on the other one, and then this one they had to do on the cheap. They're like, oh no, we only have $1,000 left to do a second myth bust. But so I have a question about the guillotine thing. So when they were doing the first rig, so like then one of the Mythbuster guys just swinging it with he's like, human speed is too slow, we gotta do faster. And they made a big deal about, I gotta do it with the right arc. So it's really like a human swinging the sword, and it's going to do this thing and swing that way. Then do the guillotine. It's not swinging in that arc.
It's just going straight at the thing.
Like you made a point of like, I can't just have it go straight at the thing. 10 minutes later, straight at the thing. That's what you got to do.
I mean, I think that because it was on an angle, it kind of simulated that arc. Like it wasn't what they needed, but it still kind of got it there.
As we talked about later, I don't know that angle on the blade helped them that much.
Overall, it just ended up doing the same thing as the arced one. It was just it hit the object, and then it caused it to do a front flip when it chopped off because it had so much momentum.
Right. Well, the thing is, if you want to clean cut somebody's head off, you gotta have the angle. But if you want to cut somebody's head off and have a delayed reaction, not sure you want the angle.
I think
because it affects the momentum of the head to have one part hit without the other part being hit at the same time.
You want that impact to be nice and even, but you're going to have to, I think, launch that blade at that head a lot faster to hit it like that.
They need to do the cross swords too.
Oh, yeah.
That would have helped. Honestly, they didn't try enough stuff. They were just like, yeah, this shit didn't work. Surprise, it didn't work.
I mean, I'll give them till like season 5 to like get that going.
Season 5. These people aren't making it a season 2.
So here's the thing.
You mean season 16?
See, they're not making it another season.
I don't know about that because like season 1 of like Mythbusters, like they didn't really like focus on they focused on actual myths. They didn't focus on explosions. They really focused on the process. And
the process.
Gotta trust the process.
Is this Dr. Pepper again?
But
it's gotta be Dr. Pepper. You gotta trust the process.
But season 1 wasn't that good. Like it busted myths, but it's still
the thing with
season 1 of any show is generally not good, and especially shows like this. So if it's tough for these new hosts.
Do you want to compare season 1 to this episode? Season 1 actually provided me with a hook. I'm like, oh, that would be interesting to know if this like classic myth is real or not.
Some real recognizable myths.
Yeah, like I understand later on when they did like TV show myths or YouTube myths, that was great. There are no hooks in this episode at all. It's just like this random thing we made up. Is it true or not? I don't know.
Do you think that they've exhausted all the good myths in the first 15 seasons?
You were off the air for 2 years. Like, there's got to be stuff to do in 2 years.
I thought the sword one was all right. I didn't think the second one, the dashboard one, was like a good one to do for the pilot.
I mean, as I said, they didn't give me a hook to care. And I think that part of the show needs to have the hook to care about the result. Because I'm just like, yeah, it's not going to work. And then like, oh, your legs are going to be fucked up. You're not going to die.
It was apparent after the first test they did with the airbag thing that it was not going to kill the person.
Yeah.
And then they spent 30 more minutes doing all this nonsense to get the same result effectively that they got in the first test. Yeah. Right?
This were both the things with the sword thing, the watermelon kind of flipped, it stayed in place, and then their final thing with the guillotine kind of did the same thing. Then this was the same. Their first test with the legs, and then the final test was the same thing.
The thing that I liked with the old Mythbusters that seemed like the format was in a lot of cases is they would prove or disprove the initial myth that they were talking about like maybe like halfway or like 2/3 of the way through the episode, and then there's like, okay, well, let's take this to like a crazy place and really see if we can do it. Like they kind of did with the model rocket engine, but like I agree, like it wasn't a crazy enough place. Like it was only like 10 miles an hour faster than like the other thing. Like it just seemed like I don't know.
Honestly, I don't think that like helped them that much. Like yeah, for like the first couple seasons that they started doing like let's put explosions, let's ramp it up, let's Team the Toolman Taylor this. it worked, but it ultimately like drove it down to like how big of an explosion can we get?
Yeah, I mean like there was definitely some of that with it, but like I like that they answer the myth reasonably quickly. Like as soon as they realize like, hey, we're not like this isn't going to go the way the myth is, then there's like they take it as a personal challenge to figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah, that's what this episode was definitely missing. There was not like, okay, so this normal thing didn't work. How can we actually get somebody's head to pop off without the head moving?
Right.
There was no talk of that. It was just like, oh, this sword thing didn't work. The myth's busted.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Like, do you think like was the guillotine thing kind of like that of taking it to the extreme
I think
level?
it was.
Or is it not
I think it was supposed to be, but it didn't really like. It didn't pan out very well. Like it didn't really pan out to be like a lot better than their previous attempts, and I don't like it. Like they could have done something like bolted the like Brian was saying, bolted the head of the thing down to see if they could just make it pop off if like the base of the thing was solid. Like they could have done something like that. They could have done some things.
I feel like you could do this. The thing is like I'm thinking about how to actually do it, and they're like not even coming up in conversation.
Right.
They're just like, well, obviously the sword's the way to go, so we're just gonna make the sword go faster and faster, and like that's it. That's the whole half-hour content for that myth. Whereas like you could also go the slow way, where like you slowly go at all 360-degree angle, and cut the head off, and just let it sit there. And then like
you could yeah.
And they're just that's not even brought up.
Yeah. Yeah.
As I'm sitting here, I'm just like that's not gonna work. And then the other one, I'm like I didn't care.
Yeah.
So like this episode in general was like bad. It's just a bad episode of TV.
Yeah, I mean, they should have had like a normal weight like stand-in for that test, because like all they had was that was the head on the neck thing.
Oh yeah.
Like they didn't have like the proper weighting to know if the body would have stayed there.
It was really interesting that for the feet on the dash thing, they got these syndavers, synthetic cadaver, which I thought was interesting when they introduced that. The text said synthetic cadaver when they said syndaver. Then when they explained what synthetic cadaver was, the text changed to syndaver. And I'm like, you guys got to flip that around.
Yeah.
But so then it's like, we were thinking, are they going to use the syndaver for the cutting the head off test? Because it seems like that would be a good fit for that. No, not a thing.
You can easily have used it too, because like the legs are fucked up. Who cares?
Yeah. No, totally.
Yet another drop ball.
We should talk about these syndavers for a second, because that was pretty crazy. Like, basically, it's supposed to be...
Why don't you go over the full myth, because I don't think we...
Oh, yeah, okay. So, effectively, the myth is if you have your feet on the dashboard when you're in some kind of a collision that causes the airbag to go off, that you will be killed in some way because of it. Theoretically, because your legs are going to jam up into your head and kill you, right? That's the theory.
I don't know what the theory was, because they didn't explain it. So,
like, yeah.
But all it was is if you have your feet on the dash and the airbag goes off, you will die.
You're dead.
That was the myth.
Yeah.
Not explained more than that.
No, definitely not.
Right, because like there's nothing more to explain. It's just, hey, like people wanted to like keep their feet off the dashboard.
Chris wants more explanation.
This is an hour-long TV show. I'm putting the onus on them. They want me to watch it. Like, I've watched Mythbusters. I think Mythbusters seasons 1 through 14 are entertaining. They're fun.
Yeah.
This, not entertaining. And I agree they have problems, but like, and it's not like the best show on TV.
I think it's gonna take him some time to find it. Like, no, like these shows, especially when there's new hosts, are never good at the beginning. There's not.
I get that.
Like,
but at least then some of the onus has to go to the production crew. The producers need to like step it up.
Yeah.
And I feel like what happened was Jamie and Adam would never have done these myths, and they were like, well, we have these myths all ready to go. Here, why don't you go do them?
Sure, yeah.
And they're like, I don't think they would have ever done this like feet on the dashboard myth because where do you take it? You're just like as no one went through here, but they essentially took like a car, half front of a car, and put like a dummy and like set the dashboard, the airbags off. Sorry, thank you. Been a little bit out of it, and you saw the feet just go all wild and like, yeah, your foot's gonna be fucked up, but like,
yeah,
the rest of you look pretty fine.
Like,
and then they just did that for a half hour.
They need that next step of like, how could somebody die in this situation?
Yeah, they just didn't. There was, but what is the next step? There is no next step. There's like
the next
let's
step is
just do it in a truck.
The next step is you crash that car like 100 miles an hour into a wall or something. Like that's
not
the next
exciting
step.
either. You're obviously gonna die then.
But at least you get a good shot out of it.
Maybe you just take this out of a space shuttle. Like, don't put your feet up on the dashboard when you're in a space shuttle. Because when when you're lifting off and you have to emergency exit, those rockets are like a lot more powerful.
Time out. You're emergency exiting the space shuttle? Walk me through this.
Risky move.
As you're lifting off in the rocket to go into space.
Yeah,
they all have emergency exits.
So you're on a rocket.
Yeah, you're on a rocket to go to space.
You're like 100 miles in the air. And you're just going to emergency exit out of that rocket?
Yeah.
Things start going sideways and you just pop out of it. I have a question for you then. Like, are astronauts, when they're taking off in the space shuttle, like wearing like a parachute of some sort?
I thought they were wearing like the astronaut suit.
They're definitely wearing the astronaut suit, but they also
they're wearing like launch suits?
That astronaut suit's way too heavy to work with a parachute.
So once they bail out of this rocket ship, how do they land?
That's what I want to know.
I don't know the mechanisms of how they exit.
Maybe they made those astronaut suits into those wingsuit things. They could just kind of fly down.
It's also not like you individually go out. I think it's just like the whole thing you're sitting in gets rocket ejected out.
Oh, so the whole like crew cabin gets ejected.
Yeah.
Oh,
the whole the whole nose of the space shuttle pops off.
It's not like James Bond where like the whole seat flies out of the car and it's not a fighter jet. That shit doesn't work when you're going 200.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Sorry, I didn't explain it well enough for you.
Oh man!
See a guy jumping off the shuttle.
See ya.
See you guys. Done with this.
Changed my mind about space. Man.
Where were we?
I don't know.
Jeez.
Okay.
Do we have a lot to talk about the show?
Well, we want to talk about the syndavers.
Yeah.
But then we were like diverting into talking about
we didn't actually explain what happened in the show, so I just wanted to go over.
We should talk about the syndavers.
So
let's talk about the syndavers.
After they did like this internal test with like fake dummies, they were going to do this real test outside with a real car and these syndavers, synthetic cadavers. And they go and they pull the car and they get hit and they x-ray and they like their legs are all
you're
fucked
not
up.
explaining these syndavers at all.
You can
Hold
get
up.
to it once I explain the fucking myth. So you explain it and then we can analyze
oh that's how it goes.
That's the format. That's the format. Okay,
Sure.
I do think they had to do the myth like this. They need to speed it up though, because like people have critiqued.
No, you just don't do this myth.
Well, yeah, like you don't do this myth, but like taking like the steps that they did, like people have critiqued like original myths online, and they'll be like, "Hey, like you didn't do this, so it's like a flawed thing," and then they've had to revisit them. So I don't like, for example, they just like skip the car thing, like.
Well, they're gonna have to revisit that sword one because they fucked that shit up.
So. Oh, probably. Because somebody's gonna point out like, "Oh, hey, you can use a freaking piano wire or do the cross swords," and then
Cross swords.
All right, but they also need to test with syndavers. Like that's where they really fucked up with this goddamn sword thing.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't do that.
These syndavers are so creepy, though.
Let's talk about the syndavers.
Is it time?
Like, I can't.
Time.
Is it time?
I can't.
I segued
the
it in.
faces
Go.
of these things, like, there's no like eyes, so it's just skin over the eyes. It's so creepy, and the teeth just aren't quite right. And
Why
you're
is
just
the
like,
mouth open?
to make it creepy?
So you can see the tongue
Because there's no muscles
Am I
holding.
making out with it now?
if you want to.
Yeah.
There's a real tongue in there. There's no muscle. The muscles hold your mouth closed. So there's no muscles to hold it closed. It's just going to be open.
Yep.
Harrison, what did you want to say with the syndavers?
Well, I just kind of want to like explain what it is. So basically what it is like the most lifelike like human dummy that you can get without it being an actual cadaver. So like they have like accurately like made all the bones in it and all the muscles and all the tissue and all the stuff so that you can basically put it through a test and then you can like x-ray it and have like an actual doctor look at it and they can tell what probably would have happened to like an actual human in that case. So like it's theoretically better than like the dummies we used to see them use in Mythbusters that are made out of like ballistics gel and stuff like that. So
I feel like they were required for this mission. This myth. Like, how do you tell what's going to happen when somebody does this? Like, you actually have to have real bone and stuff. Like, it would have been really tough.
So, do you think that they found out about these syndavers and then invented a reason to use them? Or do you think it was the other way around?
I wouldn't be surprised if they were like, oh, we've heard about this thing. How can we use this?
Well, it could have been just like some myth that they had sitting around. Again, that Jamie and Adam wouldn't do. And they're like, this would be what would be, or they have just a bunch of myths. And they're like, it would be cool if we could get these syndavers in here. And like, oh, if we do this one, we can use those syndavers. And that's what they did. But I don't know why you would pick the syndavers to use because they're like, that's not a high point of anything. So,
like, I mean, I thought it was interesting. Like, those things must be crazy expensive. Like, they must be super expensive. Like, they seem like they're all handmade and they're super detailed and I don't know.
So we talked about this a little bit off the pod. What do you think the cost is of syndaver versus real cadaver?
I don't know, man. I don't think you could just roll up to a place and buy a cadaver.
I don't think you can buy a cadaver. I think that
so, like,
they get like donated to science.
I bet if you're on the black market and you
Sure.
need a cadaver, I bet there's ways to make it happen.
I mean,
Well, yeah, there's a lot of ways to make stuff happen on the black market.
Like, you look at a black market, they're probably pretty equal. Like, who are you going to buy a cadaver?
it is risky to black market a cadaver, so I could see it being expensive.
But I think that the reason they have to use the syndavers is because you can't buy a cadaver.
Well,
not
like,
that Discovery would put a cadaver on the show,
you
but
can
like,
you can certainly get cadavers for scientific purposes, right?
so are you saying the show isn't science?
Well, I'm saying that like you could maybe make a case that it is on the Science Channel. So
What if someone puts in their will they want to donate their body to Mythbusters?
they could totally do that.
And then they thought there was going to be the old Mythbusters, and these two jokers get their cadaver.
Oh, that'd be tough. That's tough. You like forgot to amend your will after Mythbusters ended, and you're caught by surprise.
You didn't have a chance.
Oh.
maybe you like these jokers. They won the last season. They won the reality show.
They won the reality show. That's true.
I definitely think that it's going to be cheaper to get these like syndavers. Like they have to be using these all the time for like the car industry. Like they're replacing those like crash test dummies of old times.
Do you think the car industry's using syndavers versus crash test dummies?
Definitely.
I bet that they at least run some kind of test with something like that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, those crash test dummies are pretty good. They have like a bunch of sensors in them, I'm sure. And
yeah, they could probably strap those sensors to this too. But then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you actually get in an accident. Like what bones are broken?
like I thought it was so they run this test with these syndavers, and I thought it was super interesting. And like I wish that the impact to the body was more significant, but I thought it was really interesting to see like an actual like trauma, like orthopedic trauma doctor like look at these, like inspect these cadavers, syndavers,
And took actual X-rays.
Yeah, and like make an actual medical assessment of like I thought that part was interesting.
They spent a total of like 10 seconds on
Yeah,
it.
but that was super interesting. I wish they had spent a little more time on that. I wish there had been more for them to look at, because it was just like it kind of ended up where there's like, yeah, you'd have some really bad broken ankles, and that's about it. But
well, there's some hip damage there too.
there's a little bit of potential hip damage. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that
don't know.
your foot is basically off your ankle at that point.
I
But-
think like I've got to think that they were hoping for more damage on that body.
Oh, totally.
Like
They wanted
Yeah.
the one guy was like, I want the foot to just hit the person in the face.
yeah,
And that the foot definitely just kind of goes off on an angle.
You want that knee, like you want that knee to come back into the skull, so you can see that skull impact.
And
Like
your knee just doesn't like you lift it towards you. Like that's not a normal like action. I think.
yeah, but yeah,
Like maybe if you had your foot right on the explosion, but if it's like slightly off, it's just gonna like your leg's just gonna go wide, which what it did.
Well, that's what it did. Yeah, exactly.
And you're just like, well, you're gonna hurt your hip and your ankle.
yeah.
Shock.
Although,
So-
like, I also don't even. There was maybe one flaw to this where, like, if you like know that, like, if you see like this impending accident, your body might involuntarily brace for it. So maybe like muscle stiffness might also affect it.
I'm sure that would do something.
It's not a great analog, but like
It's probably the closest you're gonna get.
Best we got. Until one of these people volunteers to do it themselves.
I'm sure it's happened. Like it's like,
I-
like it's just
That's-
crazy.
I guarantee it's happened, and I'm surprised that they didn't go do a little research and try to figure out, like, hey, we found the ER report from somebody that this actually happened to.
Well, you could find someone who had it happen to.
Oh,
If
I'm
it's
sure.
not lethal. Then it's like get some guy in a wheelchair who like has no foot. Be like, yeah, I had my
Yeah.
foot in the dash and the airbag blew it off. But
Yeah,
you know,
don't do that.
don't do that.
Again, I think that the old Mythbusters would do that when they could take it to the next level. They'd be like, "Oh, this actually happened to somebody. Well, let's go see what happened." They're like, "Oh, okay, you know, somebody got stuck in a washing machine and twirled them around, or like whatever."
Yeah.
You're like, "Oh, well, now we got to take it to the next level." Whereas, like, what's the? There's
Yeah.
no next level for this.
Now let's see if we can actually kill somebody with an airbag. Like,
Which
is the next
obviously
level.
you can just like put it on their head. Oh, now they're dead,
you put an airbag on the space shuttle.
and they're going 800,000 miles an hour.
And then you try to eject, and the airbag goes off.
That syndaver might be the cheapest part of that experiment.
So one question about this is, so like when they simulated the one car actually hitting another car, they pulled it with a tow line from a truck, and we were wondering why you couldn't get someone just be in the driver's seat, drive it up, and then bail out of the car.
Yeah.
That's way better TV.
They had so much trouble getting that thing lined up, and like this has to be a solved problem at this point. Like, how do you just run a car into a barrier or something?
So here's what happened in the old Mythbusters. Grant Imahara built up a little rig where he can remote control the damn thing.
Yeah, that
You
works.
didn't either- no, they've done this before on the Mythbusters too, where they just pulled the car. But this car, probably just the alignment was fucked, and they were just like, "Oh, I don't know
Yeah.
what to do with it."
Like,
Like,
so- like they're basically trying to tow this car, and like they built this little thing that's supposed to kind of keep it in line, but it doesn't really seem to work very well. Like one time, like the first time, they almost missed like the car and kind of came back in at the last second and hit like the bumper. And then the next time it went way off the road and they hit a sign that inadvertently triggered the airbag. Like, just put some fucking bricks on the pedal, lock that steering wheel, and let it go.
as I told
Doesn't
you,
make any sense.
while we were watching this. This is the reason why you don't have insurance to do this stuff, and this is why Mythbusters has insurance to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
just don't be putting pedal like just can't push
what's
the
gonna
pedal
happen?
down.
What's gonna happen, Chris?
You just can't do that.
Why not?
The tow line wasn't the problem. Like, they just had to figure out the damn steering. And this is why, like, I just think they couldn't get together. Like, put more plays down. Do something to make sure it goes in the straight line.
They definitely don't have as much experience at this point. Like yeah.
I mean, I feel like it took the Mythbusters a long time to get their remote control car game down. So, like, I'm not too like that's fine, whatever.
They still
I-
probably have that rig sitting around. Do you think Grant took that?
I don't know. I don't think that like they're trying to distance themselves from previous hosts. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
And like part of the appeal of the show is to watch them like make something to test these myths and not like just like, you know, buy something at a store to like do this.
No, totally, yeah.
So I have a question about the editing. I want to know like how much this is like the old Mythbusters, but I was it felt like it was very disjointed that they were cutting back and forth between the two and not just like, here's the first one, you do that. Okay, now we're going to do a second one, you do that. And also meant like, obviously it let them do more recapping. We're like, oh, we're back to the dummy. Let's talk again about how we're running. Let's see the shot of the ankle hitting the thing again. Like, it didn't seem like it flowed super well. And how much did that compare to like how they did the editing on the old one?
So this was almost exactly the same as like the old Mythbusters, where they would have they had like Adam and Jamie doing like one project, and then side team doing a second project. Sometimes they had like a third project in the mix, but they would cut back and forth between like all these. They'd recap like that. It was the same format.
Yeah, very similar.
Honestly, that's the weakest part of the show, of the old show.
Yeah, and they obviously do it so that they can introduce you to all of the myths at the beginning, and if there's even one that's interesting to you, you're going to have to stick around for the whole show to see the result of it, right?
Well, I think that the goal is to have all the climaxes of all the stories to be at the same time.
Mm-hmm. But it has the effect
at the end of the show.
But it has the effect of if you only care about one of the myths, you have to watch the whole show.
That is true.
Yeah.
Like if you don't like this stupid, like, car myth, you can just watch. You don't get to see the other giant explosion until you've like watched.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Was the old Mythbusters, did they talk about explosions so much? Because these two guys really seem to be like, how can we put an explosion in here?
So Jamie and Adam like didn't really care about like they cared a little bit, but the other three just like they were the same way. They were like only cared about explosions.
Here's who really cared: the producers and the audience.
The audience really loved the explosions. I don't know. I was never a huge fan.
Yeah, like once they discovered explosions and like how many more viewers it brought in, then they just threw it into everything. The challenge was who can create the biggest explosion.
There was one myth where they like had like they took a bunch of matchsticks and just cut the match part, like the stick part off, and just had like the heads. And they filled up a barrel of matchsticks, like a huge like 30-gallon barrel or whatever it is, and put an air cannon below it, and they would push all these matchsticks out of it and then light them all on fire, and it created this huge explosion. Like this giant like mushroom cloud of like fire. And that was a great episode.
Oh man, I gotta watch that one.
See, that's where they started going away from like the actual myths. It was just like,
well, once you run out of myths, quote unquote, like they did in like season 2, you gotta do something with the show.
It was a couple seasons before they started going away from like actual myths.
The first season of this show had like a myth expert that would explain to you where the myth came from and what the myth was about. They stopped that.
Yeah,
because they ran out of myths.
So they ran out of myths a long time ago.
Yeah, they started doing like YouTube myths and movie like would this actually happen, which was fine. I don't even remember what the actual like real myths were.
I was trying to remember. I think that like one of them with like
this has been so long.
Like the Death Mirror. Like I think that was a later season though.
Yeah, the Artemis or not Artemis, but
whatever. It's just like, oh yeah, like I can get a death ray going from the fucking sun.
Yeah. All right. I don't know if we have anything else to say about the show.
All right. Well, Chris, how would you rate it?
Should do some ratings.
The rating for this is so complicated because I think old Mythbusters is a top tier show. Like bottom of the top tier. It's fun. I actually watch a lot of it, so like it would have to be in the top tier, but like this I don't know if I can put it above the bottom tier because it's just these myths were bad, the editing was bad, the jokes were bad. Like I can't.
Ooh. Oh, we never talked about the guy's onomatopoeia.
Oh man. The one host loved onomatopoeias. So I got to give Mythbusters 2017 a bottom rank.
Oof.
Bottom third.
That's tough.
I'm a harsh critic.
You blew him up like that ankle.
Rob, what are you giving this one?
I think I'm gonna give it a middle tier. It's probably barely into the middle tier, but it kept my attention, and there was some sort of things that were interesting. Maybe it's because I haven't seen OG Mythbusters as much, so it was more like kind of novel. But definitely had some weak points, and I wonder if it wouldn't hold up under if you watch multiple episodes. But I think we've seen some worse things. So I'm gonna put it in the middle tier.
Harrison.
Yeah, I'm also in the middle third. I mean, certainly not as good as original Mythbusters. The myths they went over weren't that great, but like I'd like to see what they can do with maybe some better content. And I think that the new hosts will hopefully kind of settle into it a little bit. Like no one's great first day out of the gate. I think it's middle third.
And they've already done a whole season.
No,
No, they didn't.
They did a season of them being contestants on a reality show, which is not the same as them hosting this show. Definitely not.
Brian, what do
Don't
you
worry,
got?
don't worry, Chris. I'll put it in the queue. We can judge the other show.
But we already know who won.
That'll make it interesting in a way. 'Cause we'll be able to see if they're better than the rest of the jokers on that show or
Yeah.
not.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the thing is, I don't know, is the other hosts were like professional like makers. They would make things for like movies,
Like special
So
effects
the
guys.
Special effects guys, like all of them.
Mm.
And these guys are not special. They are like professional, like hobbyists.
They definitely decided that they needed to go low cost on the talent. Like, because there are people they could have gotten to do this show that would have been great. Like, they decided they wanted to go low cost on the talent.
But I feel like the talent can't be that expensive to be on Mythbusters.
It depends on who you get.
Like, I mean, obviously, if they wanted the best people, they would have just kept Jamie and Adam around. Because I feel like they would have done it if they would have been paid.
Yeah, maybe.
Cut that check.
All right, Brian, give us your rating.
Okay. I'm straight middle, like middle. I was super happy to see that there was no explosions in this. That they were like, they weren't going to go back to the old Mythbusters and do the big explosions, and they were actually trying like different myths. Granted, they weren't that great, but it gives me hope that like future episodes will actually do something better.
I really want this show to be good.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of middle tiers here are, you want the show to be good.
I mean, like, but we're judging based off the straight
Yeah.
pilot.
Yeah.
This isn't the pilot.
It is the pilot.
It's season 15, Brian.
This is 15. Brian.
It's new hosts, like new everything. Like it's a pilot.
Yeah.
Or a reboot, if you will.
The thing is, you have all of the history of all the producers of everyone that worked on the show. You could bring them back. They're not that expensive. You could bring back the producers. You could bring back Jamie and Adam to help you with the first couple episodes.
They spent too
the
much
whole
getting
first
the announcer
season
guy back.
like,
Yeah, like,
and you just shat on it. Like, it was terrible.
But you mentioned like before, like you think that like, they're trying to stay away from like the old Mythbusters.
No, I'm just saying behind the scenes you bring them back and like you're like, oh, this
Yeah.
myth would be good because then you could do this, and this, and you help them like.
but you're not saving the money then.
I was.
Well,
I
you
was.
just get them to help you make a good show. Like you're not saving any money if no one's watching your show because it's garbage.
I did read as I was trying to find the show description that they said that they tried to bring back as much of the original production crews they could. And I don't know how successful they were in bringing them back, but they're at least trying to bring back some of the original production people.
Like, are they trying to break the cameraman or the
I don't
actual
know, man. It's like a
producer?
one-sentence quote from the dude. I have no idea.
I don't know, I'm just kind of soiled at this episode.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's more middle tier, but like, I don't want to watch this. At
We
this
don't have
point.
to all
Yeah.
agree, Chris. It's
Yeah.
okay.
I know the problem is I want it to be good. I like Mythbusters.
Yeah.
And this episode was just bad.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
that every episode of Mythbusters was great, but like everything about this episode is not good. Like every single thing.
I think it piqued my curiosity about new Mythbusters enough to watch another episode, and that's my middle tier definition. So like, it's just what it is.
I mean, I watched like some of the White Rabbit project, and like it didn't
Oh,
hold me
man.
for like a couple
That
episodes.
was
And
tough.
that was like an old crew, old chemistry.
It was so bad.
That
But
was
it
tough.
wasn't. You want to talk about that? I don't even remember what that show was about. It was
Just
awful.
explain quickly what that show is.
It was a Netflix show where they like interviewed people about like science stuff. I don't really
Who
remember all that
interviewed
well.
people?
Carrie Byron, Tori Belleci, and Grant Imhara.
The three kind of alternate Mythbusters people.
Got it.
And it was not anything about them making really anything.
Yeah. No. Yeah. There's
And it
definitely
was
not.
like, I remember one episode about being superhuman, and they went and interviewed circus people about how, like, you know, one guy had I don't really remember, but theoretically had like a huge nose or something, and it was like the show was terrible.
There's definitely not enough of them just making stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you set the three of them down, we're like, I want you to get, you know, this cantaloupe from here to like 8 blocks that way on like this with this shit. And it's just like a junkyard, and you're like, I'd watch that.
They're like
I'd watch them like try to solve like problems and like build things.
they should have a show that's based around like them taking like challenges from the internet, and then they just like make an episode. And, like,
Yeah,
trying to
that'd
do
be
it.
great.
Something like that. Be cool.
I feel like if you remove some of this editing too, where like if you just do the one myth, like these two myths, if this was like half the length of time and like normal editing, it would have been fine. But the fact that you have to do the recaps, you take an hour, like it just doesn't work. Like I don't understand, me personally, about a lot of TV that's happening, because it's just a lot of just filler or garbage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can segue into the challenge
Oh man, it's coming.
with that,
Excuse me.
because this last week's episode of the challenge
Yeah.
might lower the whole fucking tier, because
It was
it's
bad.
fucking garbage.
It was not good. It was
Oh.
not good.
Harrison, I see the sadness in your
Oh,
eyes.
it's so bad. So like,
gotta
okay,
tell us what happened.
Okay, so generally at the end of the season of the challenge, they have like the final challenge, and it's always like pretty different from the rest of the show because it's just this big episode long physical challenge, and then they announce who the winners at the end of it. For this season, they decide. Well, first thing was super weird in the final physical challenge how TJ was not there. And we've already talked about this. TJ was not there. He was just there on the iPhone. Very strange. Still no story on what happened there yet. And then they say, okay, we're not going to announce the winners in the last episode. We're going to announce it on the reunion show. So you guys have to wait to figure out who wins. So then this week is the reunion show. And as far as I know, like this is the reunion show, and this is the end of the season.
Yeah.
Because they've never in history had more than one reunion show before.
I
But
wouldn't know.
as the reunion show goes on, it becomes apparent that they are just going to announce third place, and they're going to have another full hour reunion show next week to announce first and second place, which then leads into Champs versus Stars.
I couldn't even make it through the whole episode. I watched the first segment. I'm like, this is fucking awful. And
It
I
was-
just fast forwarded to the end, hoping that I would find out who won.
Not at all.
Nope. I was like, what? Did it not record the next hour? Like, I figured it was just a 2-hour special. Nope.
It was tough. It was a reunion show hosted by WWE superstar The Miz.
He was hamming it up so hard, it was terrible.
He's hamming it up because that's what WWE superstars do.
I know, I get it.
Yeah.
When you're on W, like, it's fine.
Oh yeah.
This whole thing was just bad. Like, I didn't care about any of it.
It was tough. It was tough to watch. One of the funny parts of it was both The Miz and TJ came out together at the beginning of the episode, and then The Miz is like, okay, TJ is gonna go hang out in the VIP section. So he just goes and sits in his VIP section with just like a bunch of ladies while The Miz just hosts the rest of the show. It's very strange.
Well, at the last thing, TJ comes back.
Yeah, because TJ I was at least happy that TJ was there to do the double cross prize stuff because he's always there to award the prize. So I was hoping that he was at least going to be there for that. But
So what's this double cross prize?
so, if you remember in the season before, like in before the Presidio, they had the double cross thing where they lift up the box, and so they basically had that to reveal the third place. So they had everybody hold on one of the things, and then the people that had 2 crosses were still safe, and then the people that only had 1 cross were the people that were in third place. So we had Tori plus CT were the third place people.
Oh.
Which I was surprised that Tori was at the bottom because it looked like in the final that she was doing pretty well, but it's kind of hard to tell, I guess.
And then, do you want to say who TJ was supposed to be?
Oh yeah, Camilla was not there. So
we rumored this a couple weeks ago, probably
Yeah.
months ago at this point. It's that Camilla is kicked off of the challenge forever.
yeah, which I don't know. I don't know anything about this, but she was not at the reunion show, and TJ was her stand-in. So TJ lifted up the double cross for Camilla.
Oh wow.
I did see on Twitter, like after the episode, that Camilla said something like, I'm dealing with some kind of family emergency or something like that, and that's why I wasn't at the reunion show. So I don't really know what the story is.
Rumor is that she
and
did,
I also don't
she
know
did something at
Yeah.
the Stars season and got kicked off.
Okay, so she's also on the Champs versus Stars season.
Yeah.
Okay. Who knows?
Rumor is she gets kicked off, and
Well,
we're doing something she does during that season.
Jesus. Well, So that was crazy. The only other thing really worth mentioning is there was this whole situation that kind of developed with Tori. So basically it's kind of broken up into like all these segments, and like sometimes it'd be like the whole cast talking about something. Sometimes like the Miz would just sit down with like one or two people to talk about some situation. So there's this Tori and Derek, not the Derek that made it to the finals, but the Derek that was on the first week. Were dating when they came on the show and like super in love, whatever. They were on they were on Are You the One together, like that.
Remember.
And so this whole situation starts happening, and like I guess that after the final, Tori, when they were back in LA, slept with Jordan and then broke up with this Derek guy afterwards. So then Tori and Derek are both there, and then there's some whole insane controversy around like Derek was over at Tori's actual home for something, and then like a few minutes later, like 30 minutes, 60 minutes later, she gets texted like a picture of all of these text messages on her phone, like with her and Jordan, like from like an anonymous like Google Voice number. And Tori's basically claiming that this Derek dude is the one who's like snooping on her phone and like sending this stuff out. So there's some whole insane controversy going on there.
So you're saying Derek, her ex, sent out a bunch of messages to like the world?
Just to Tori, like basically like blackmailing or some kind of like threatening her in some way. Like there's some kind of weird situation. I don't know. It was like there was this whole big controversy.
This is
in the show
episode.
about it.
This is terrible.
That was
even you
that was
talking
the most
about
exciting
it. I'm just
thing.
like,
That was the most exciting thing that happened in the whole episode, though.
Well,
it wasn't good.
Also, I didn't see this episode, but based on how you said like what happened with TJ and the Miz, it kind of sounds like TJ might be retiring.
Oh man, I hope
no,
not.
the Miz
hope
is
not.
just doing
Chance for
Chance
Stars.
for Stars.
Yeah.
Are you sure? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, he's so like Victor Cruz did Chance vs Pros.
Yeah.
So now the Miz is doing Chance versus.
We don't know.
Yeah,
We don't know for sure that TJ's doing season 31, but there hasn't really been an indication that he's retiring.
right, but it seems like like he's just going to go sit in this VIP area, like, and not
I
deal
think
with
I think more of what it is that TJ doesn't care to be involved with like the drama of the cast, so he doesn't want to be the person who's poking and prying on like the drama of the situation. I think what it is.
But why doesn't he do the side seasons?
That's a great question. I don't know why. Good question.
Like I understand not doing the reunion show.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think a lot of hosts actually do the reunion show. Like, I don't think the guy in Survivor does the reunion show.
He's the one guy I know definitely does it.
Also Chris Harrison.
Oh, Chris Harrison.
Chris Aaron does, but he's the host, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
The
Chris
Bachelor-
Harrison
yeah,
does it.
yeah.
You're right. But yeah, Jeff Probst, like, I think the first season of Survivor he didn't do it, but then he definitely has been doing it for forever. That he does the reunion show.
Yeah. Yeah, TJ just doesn't
I
want to
feel
get involved in that level.
I know there's one season of Jersey Shore where Amazon Amy hosted the reunion show.
Oh, boy.
Even though she wasn't involved with the rest of Jersey Shore.
straight off of her hosting gig for Dating Naked.
No, this was pre Dating Naked.
Oh.
Pre being Amazon Amy.
Oh.
Because we looked her up to be like, what else has this person been in? And it's like, oh, she was on the Jersey Shore reunion show.
Amazing.
This would also fit with like the side seasons not being hosted by TJ, because then it's like, oh, let's use these side ones as a testing ground.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
it's-
like
it's
in all the seasons I've seen of the challenge, TJ's never hosted the reunion show.
It's clear that the Miz is doing this because he's the host of this side challenge.
It's gonna roll right into it.
But
too,
why
next week.
TJ doesn't do the side challenge, I don't know.
Good question.
So Brian, you're saying Victor Cruz failed the test?
Oh,
Oh, Victor
didn't-
Cruz is the worst.
he didn't just fail it; he super failed it. I don't know what that means, but
Super fail.
So as the season of the challenge wraps up, this is my first
Yeah.
complete season of the challenge.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things about it that I don't like.
Yeah.
There's a lot that episodes where they spent the whole episode doing the
Redemption
House
Not
stuff
good.
was so bad.
I think that this is their first time out with the Redemption House. We'll see if they figure out how to make it better next time.
Yeah, don't
I
spend
think
a
that-
whole fucking episode.
I think
on
that
it.
the idea was interesting. I think that the challenges that they used to bring people back in from it weren't amazing. I don't know. Yeah.
and then this reunion thing really
It's terrible.
And the like finale definitely has an amazing race problem where they're like, "Ooh, who's winning? Maybe it's him. Maybe it's him. The way we're gonna edit it, you'll never know
For sure.
because we're gonna edit it." And you're like, "Well, that's not exciting."
I would, yeah, like the final this year, I think wasn't as good as normal. No TJ wasn't great, and then I don't think it was like. And I think I said this about Invasion of the Champions season as well, but like I didn't seem like the final was as strenuous as it usually is. Didn't seem like it's as intense. Like they did a bunch of stuff, but it wasn't like that crazy. I don't know.
They
So-
definitely made it seem like crazier than I think it was. Like climbing up that wall, they were like, "Oh, I almost fell," and I'm like,
Yeah.
It's
It's like
you
you're
didn't
rock
look
climbing.
like you
You're
were
literally rock climbing.
falling at all." Like, I don't-
Yeah.
Does the terrible reunion just be part of the fact that it's the dirtiest season of them all, and the last dirty move was played on you?
It could be. It could
They
be.
definitely dirty moves on us. Like that, unacceptable.
Yeah, like it was already a long season, which was like it was great that it was long and they had time to experiment with some different things, but like you cannot like if you're not gonna reveal the winner on the finale, you at least got to reveal it on the fucking reunion show. Don't do 2 reunion shows.
Or if you're gonna do it a 2-hour reunion show, just do a 2-hour reunion show.
It's
Don't
crazy.
do 1 hour one week and 1 hour the next week.
Just do one reunion show, roll it right up into Champs versus Stars. There's no reason to do 2 weeks. Like it's crazy.
So one last question.
Yeah.
Do we get any Tony update?
They did not get to Big Tone in this one. I think that's going to be a reunion part 2 talk with Tony. Yeah, I was looking forward to the Tony talk, and it didn't happen this time.
So all the things you wanted are in
It's
reunion part 2.
Yeah. There will be no Camilla interview, which I do want to hear, and I hope will be a Tony interview, but hasn't happened yet. We'll see.
Does anyone want to talk about good TV that you've been watching?
I got a little caught up on Are You the One? Does that count as good TV?
Ooh, speaking of good TV.
I'm rolling my eyes over here. By the way.
So I'm not going to talk about a lot, but like Kareem, hot-headed and bothered,
Oh,
has got to get off TV. Like, he is just terrible.
oh man.
Like, he gets angry at people for talking to a girl just because he thinks that that's making an improper move. He gets angry at people who say that they're too coupled up because he's like, who's stopping you from talking to them? And I'm not stopping you. When you definitely are. He's just getting angry about everything all the time. And so the one he was coupled up with for forever is now like, I actually kind of think he's a terrible person and maybe I shouldn't be dating him anymore.
Yeah.
And he got real angry about that. He's just insane.
I mean,
Well, yeah.
I'd probably get angry if somebody said I was a terrible person too.
But like,
It's-
what if you deserved it because you were a terrible person?
Yeah.
Maybe I'd have to reevaluate at that point, but I hope I'm not at that level.
I'm surprised at the way things have gone with Kareem. Like he seemed, like him and I can't remember the girl that he was with. Like seemed like they were in an amazing relationship, and he wasn't getting pissed for the first like 3-4 episodes, and then he starts getting pissed a few times. Kareem goes and makes out with that other girl.
That's the other thing. Like,
Like,
his girl went to talk to some guy, and his response was, I guess I'll just go make out with some other girl.
yeah.
And it's like, if she'd done that to him, he would have just raged so bad about how, like, what a terrible person she was.
Yeah.
And he was just like, yeah, no, that's what I do.
And then instead, he just raging at the person that told
Oh, yeah.
the girl about it.
He
And, like,
raged at the guy who told her. It's like, what
That
are you
guy-
doing?
that
Why are you
guy-
trying to cause trouble?
that guy didn't even tell her either. That
I
guy got
know.
totally boned in that situation.
It's too nuts.
Yeah.
Were there any blackouts?
There have been no blackouts, but they are for Truth Booth. They still haven't found a single perfect match.
They're definitely not going to win. It gets
They're
nowhere
definitely not
close.
like, it's like after their 6th light ceremony, they realize maybe we're not doing this right, and they like start doing like a speed dating thing. Where like we all need to talk to everyone and try to get to know each other better. And they're already like more than halfway through the whole thing.
it's rough.
It's so bad. They're doing terrible.
yeah.
But no blackouts.
they
They
just don't
always
have
get
it.
at least one.
They just don't have it together.
Yeah.
So I want to not segue, but was Derek and Tony, were they a perfect match in Are You the One?
Derek and Tony,
Or not Tony, sorry.
they weren't, and interestingly, in the reunion, in the VIP section with Tony, was with TJ, was Tori's perfect match. And at some point, like they're going to the people in the VIP. It's like, hey, like, you know, you used to date Tori, like, you know, what was it like? Whatever, like, what do you think about this? And then Tori's like, we didn't really date. Like, we're a perfect match on Are You the One, but like we weren't together. So like it leads me to believe that, I don't know, like not it's like the people that end up in perfect matches don't always end up as couples, you know? So,
Yeah, no, definitely.
yeah.
Were they not trusting in the process?
I don't know.
I don't think they trust the process. But what was I going to say? So Joe, who was the romantic rookie, they did a challenge where they brought some exes of the Are You the One people on. His ex was on season 5 of Are You the One, and apparently she broke up with him to go on Are You the One.
Oh no.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and she seemed like she was an insane person, and she was just like started mouthing off because like the challenge you got to go ask the ex questions about the person, and she was just like mouthing off at all the people and like getting in their face.
So
and
is
stuff.
he actually dating somebody now? Like when we watched it, there was
No,
no.
this is- he, like his. It's sort of weird because his thing is he's romantic rookie, and it definitely seems like he doesn't really know how to be in a relationship. But he apparently dated this person for 6 months, who then went on it. Are You the One season 5?
She is
Super
she
weird.
seems crazy though, right?
Oh yeah.
Huh.
How is
Huh.
the challenge looking? Anyone up for the challenge?
Ooh. That's a good question. I think that they'll probably get some people out of the season. I wouldn't be surprised to see Kareem on the challenge, to be honest with you.
Kareem's on the challenge. That I'm
That it's done.
I was like, maybe I should watch a challenge with like some of these people I know, and as Kareem's on, there's 0%
It's
chance
done.
of watching that.
Yeah.
I still like Nerys
Nerys.
and Michael as being good.
Michael, I think, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Do we need to watch the other challenge feeder show that's about to premiere?
90s House?
Florabama.
Florabama Coast?
Oh, this came up on the pod last week too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did talk about it. You did talk about it a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah.
You think anyone from Siesta Key is going to make it out of the challenge?
No, because the 100 Ask Gary is the producer.
Oh,
not like
yeah.
the regular MTV producers.
So do we got to watch Florabama Coast, or do we got to watch the OG Jersey Shore, which we haven't done on the podcast?
Oh, man. That is true. We
I
haven't
feel
seen
like
Jersey Shore.
Shore could be like, I mean, could be like a big number episode, like a 50. I don't know. I always like to leave the big popular ones for like
Here's the
big
thing.
numbers.
We got to stop doing MTV shows. We got to put MTV
Oh,
on hold for
I
a little
don't know.
bit, and there's just been too much MTV.
I think I've watched more MTV with you guys than I have in the rest of my childhood.
Spent a lot of MTV lately.
I mean, I watched a lot of Jackass as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't have MTV in Canada, so I've definitely watched more MTV.
I think we can blame Harrison and the challenge for all of this.
When they just keep putting out the good content, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Good content like 90s House.
That great content like 90s House and Siesta Key.
And that last episode of the challenge.
Yeah. Not great.
Wait, how many episodes of Siesta Key have you seen?
I've seen one episode of Siesta Key. It's a terrible show.
One was enough.
Yeah.
But how many 1-800 Ask Gary commercials have you seen?
I've seen quite a few more than that.
How often has your dad talked to 100 Ask Gary?
Oh, I don't know. I think he's seen him around a little bit though.
You should try to get on that show.
Oh man.
I get invited to one of those parties.
We got to get 1-800 Ask Gary on the pod.
Ooh.
What if we just call 1-800 Ask Gary?
Just dial it.
Just dial it.
Man,
Dude, you
I
know
like
who,
that.
who we really need to get? Johnny Bananas.
That would, yeah. I would love to have. I would love to be able to interview a challenge contestant for the podcast.
Yeah.
Great.
You are the interviewer. I'm out.
Okay,
The
okay.
host is out on the interviewing process. Harrison, you're in.
Okay.
Tagging you in.
I'll do it.
Does anyone have anything else to talk about? I've watched The Gifted, which is this new X-Men
Oh yeah, how is
Fox
that?
show. I'm really enjoying it. It's like what you'd expect from like an actual X-Men show. It's like these group of mutants fighting the man, and like it's turning out to be really good. Like it starts out a little like, oh, is this gonna be good? Is it not gonna be good? But as it's going along, I'm really enjoying it.
How does it compare to Hero Season 1?
It's definitely more like underground. Like the world feels more realized than like Hero Season 1 was definitely about the world changing, whereas like the world's already changed. This is like the United States
Mutants are a
is
thing.
like anti-mutant and these are mutants, and they're like, well, how do you live in a world like that? But you have superpowers, so it's like it's easier to live in a world like that. Like, I mean, obviously there's a lot of allegories, but it's I really like it. So we'll see how it goes. From this point on, there's 6 or 7 episodes.
Interesting. How do we think that Amazon Lord of the Rings show is going to go?
I don't know. That sounds
man.
nuts.
Didn't they spend like $200 something million just on the rights for it?
Yeah,
Like,
that's rumored.
it's something
I don't know
insane,
if
right?
They've actually.
And they had
Said.
that's not any kind of production cost. That's just like what they paid for the IP.
Jeff Bezos cutting those checks.
Definitely cutting
Well-
checks. Wearing vests, cutting checks.
So his son retired in like August. So like Chris Tolkien, I think his name is. Or
Mhm.
He retired. So now this just comes up. Like, okay,
Yeah.
it's clearly what happened. Like, I don't know what they're gonna make the show based on. Like, so the Silmarillion, which is like all the prequel story stuff, like the estate wasn't giving any rights out for that stuff for like the forever.
So do we know what they actually got?
We don't know. They're doing some sort of prequel series, but Lord of the Rings kind of starts like shortly after The Hobbit, and there's not like the Silmarillion. I haven't read it, but read online that there's not a lot of like prequel stuff from Lord of the Rings. There's a lot of like hundreds of years before all that stuff starts. So-
Right.
Wasn't The Hobbit the prequel to Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Didn't we
So,
already
like-
do this?
we did do that.
Well, I didn't see
Badly.
it, so
Like, I don't know. Jeff wants his Game of Thrones so bad, and like it feels like this is kind of what that is,
he's real thirsty.
right?
I mean, to be honest, there isn't like Netflix is making hits and Amazon's just not making hits.
They should get that the whatever time book series. What's that one called?
Wheel
Wheel of Time. They should pick that up.
Somebody has it.
Oh man.
I forget who's doing it. Somebody's doing that. Somebody's doing a bunch like Name of the Wind is being produced by somebody. A bunch of things actually, video game and stuff. I don't know. We'll see.
Here's the thing about Amazon Video. Can you really be taken seriously as a major video player when your app doesn't support Chromecast?
Oh.
Yeah,
Like my podcast app supports Chromecast.
That's true.
definitely a business decision and not like
Yeah.
a real reason for it not to.
Strategic. as
I
opposed to
think it's
business.
strategic the wrong way. I think it's people be like, I'm not using this.
Depends on what you're being strategic for, I guess.
Well, it's
guess.
like, or what are their big attempts at getting like a Game of Thrones style? They've got the Man in the High Castle.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a very high concept like show.
was that a pun?
Yeah. Max is not here. I have to give us some puns. It's a very high concept show that was very slow and just like I only made it a couple episodes in. I read the book, but like I
Yeah.
thought the show was very too similar, and it just didn't work out that well.
Yeah.
They
I mean,
also have
like
Transparent.
Yeah.
I mean, Transparent is their big hit, but that's like one.
It's a critical hit. I don't like. Do you watch Transparent?
I've watched season 1.
You watch all season 1. Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
I mean, it was a good. It was a good show.
I watched the first episode. It was like, oh, this is a comedy, and I'm like, that wasn't funny. And then I didn't watch anymore.
It's not. It's not. It's more of a dramedy than a comedy. Like it's more drama than comedy.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Amazon definitely doesn't want to just be known as like the people that make Transparent. They want a Game of Thrones, they want a Westworld, they want something like that.
well, their current movie approach is way better than Netflix's movie approach. Like Amazon goes out and buys like
Sure.
good movies from film festivals.
they're
and then
doing a good job on the movie
do the
stuff.
theater releases, and then it goes on Amazon.
Yeah.
And it like they have good movies. The Amazon movies are good, whereas like Netflix movies are not very good.
Because they're all Adam Sandler movies now.
What about that Will Smith movie?
Oh man.
Speaking of fantasy, but like TV show wise, they're not doing great. Their whole pilot system's clearly not working out for them.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, they bought the like Grand Tour or something. Has anyone watched that?
I watched the first episode of that.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty popular thing, but I don't know anyone who watches it.
I watched the first episode too.
I watched a couple episodes. It's just not. It doesn't have something in there that was in old Top Gear.
yeah, them just doing random funny stuff. Like the first episode I watched, I mean first one
Yeah.
was like them taking the 3 most expensive cars out, but didn't explain that, and I didn't know that. I was supposed to like know that that's supposed 3 most expensive cars ever. And I was just like,
Who
I don't
knows?
know.
Yeah.
Like they leaned too much into the car stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas like before it was just like the funny parts that I've seen were like, you know, they're in Germany and they took this 3-wheeled car and they're like, let's drive it back to the UK and like just do funny stuff on the way. And like
yeah.
the same thing with Conan. Conan does like really funny stuff when he goes out on like outside and like
Right.
does stuff, visits other countries. Like he's great,
Mm-hmm.
but you know his stand-up's like, his
I ca-
interviewing skills are.
I kind of think Conan should just have like a travel show or something like that and just do that.
should just do more comedy
Yeah.
instead of.
Should Conan host a reality show?
Oh man.
Conan would be a pretty good reality host.
I can't even imagine what reality show he would host. Like trying to come up with it.
See him doing the challenge.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah, after the Miz flames out, they had Conan to host the challenge.
Oh my gosh.
Do you think I could do that? You know, with my hair, swing my hair out. It's just like, do I need to wear the same clothes as you?
Conan could have hosted 90's House.
Oh, Conan
Oh.
could have hosted 90's House.
That would have been great. All right. I guess that's it this week, guys.
Take us home, Chris.
All right. Well, you can please rate us on iTunes. Who Put This On? You can find us on Facebook.com/Who Put This On. Find us on Twitter @Who Put This On. Please email us questions and suggestions at whoputthison@gmail.com. Adios.